as that chief of staff, doing what we could to make sure that we could get the kind of support necessary.
El Sayed is running on an agenda of Medicare.
That folks like El Sayed in Michigan is rising, or someone like Graham Platt or Troy Jackson in Maine. This is occurring on their own watch, and they're realizing that what's happened is they're giving rise to a whole bunch of people. They're basically communists, not socialists. They're anti-Semitic. They hate capitalism, and many times they hate America. When you start saying, gee, America's responsible for 9/11, you should question whether or not you should be sending that individual to the United States Congress.
Speaking of other races there in the Midwest, voters in Missouri are set to decide on Democratic Socialist Cori Bush, who is launching a comeback bid against the incumbent Wesley Bell. Here's Congressman Bell discussing his optimism for the race and the support he has within the Democratic establishment.
Democratic leadership is supporting me. The Congressional Black Caucus that knows us both is supporting me. Labor unions overwhelmingly are supporting me because they know I'm going to wake up every day and do the work of St. Louis.
Cori Bush, one of the original members up here on Capitol Hill of the Squad with AOC and a few others, she lost to Wesley Bell back in 2024. Do you think the outcome this time will be shaped more by local dynamics or national trends?
It probably will be done by national trends, particularly when it comes to Israel. Bell is a supporter of Israel, and obviously Cori Bush comes across as an anti-Semite. She's a firebrand that fits more in that El Sayed mode than anything else. And when it comes to Missouri's 1st District, I don't think they really care one way or the other about the ideological difference.
Let his hair grow.
About is crime. What they're concerned about is tornadoes, and Bell has shown himself to be better than Bush. Whoever wins this primary is going to go on to represent the Missouri 1st District. So it's going to be a Democrat. The only question is it fully crazy or just half crazy?
Speaking of which, both of them started their careers as BLM activists, Bush leaning further into socialist positions than Bell. Do you think a DSA victory in this district would be indicative of a broader leftward shift among Democratic voters?
I'm not sure about that just because this district is so left-leaning to begin with. It actually rewards those who are craziest. That's the reason why Cori Bush, for a while, a lot of people soured on her because they said, hey, just too far left for what we actually need in this St. Louis area. So, I mean, again, the problem is it's such a blue district that either way, I don't know that it's going to tell you about DSA candidates overall, but what does tell you about DSA candidates are what we're seeing in Michigan, what we're seeing in Maine, and what we're seeing in some of the governor's races like Wisconsin with Hall.
Speaking of DSA and socialism, Mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, recently discussing plans to vet residents who intend to shop at city-owned grocery stores. Here's the mayor and his team discussing what that process might look like.
New Yorkers to be able to put food on the table, not a program for people to be able to make a quick buck through reselling.
We are looking to make sure that we target New Yorkers, whether it be at sort of a library card-esque thing, and also we manage who's buying, and that is focused on everyday New Yorkers.
City-run grocery stores, positive, or do you see some pitfalls?
I see some major pitfalls in the city-run grocery stores, but I think the big hypocrisy here is we are going to vet them. We are basically saying we need an ID for people to come in and use our city-run grocery store, but we have more than a dozen states in the District of Columbia that do not have voter ID, where you're actually electing people to give us $7 trillion a year of taxpayer money, but in that case, we shouldn't vet who they are. But when it comes to a city-owned grocery store, you need an ID to get. Look, you can't make this up. This is honestly, once again, handing Republicans a talking point when it comes to the need for voter ID in the United States of America. Not only proof of ID, but also proof of citizenship.
Mind you, some of those folks that come up with ID might not be legal to work here, yet they might have an ID and still would benefit from hard-earned taxpayer money. Fort O'Connell, really appreciate it. And 7 million children by launch. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calling it the most successful program launch in government history. The president says it will give every child a head start on the American dream. The investment accounts are designed to help families build long-term savings and educate children in the process. Children born between 2025 and 2028 got an additional boost of $1,000. Families can add up to $5,000 per year with funds invested in the S&P 500 index. And Treasury officials say the early response has exceeded expectations and might help introduce millions of American families to long-term investing. That is all we have for you tonight on the Capitol Report. Stay connected to the stories that matter and visit
things like that. So first, addressing crime is essential. Lowering regulations or barriers to entry that make it easier and less costly to open and operate a business. And finally, reducing taxes, whether that is corporate taxes, income taxes, property taxes, can all make can make it easier for businesses to start and expand operations. Now, Mamdani's solution of just injecting the government into the private sector isn't going to solve grocery affordability. It's going to just exacerbate the problem.
Now, you talk about other businesses and not wanting to be in areas where there's crime, but does this government inserting itself create unfair competition with the private businesses?
It absolutely does. Private businesses have already been on record saying that they don't want government grocery stores coming into their areas. For example, one of Mamdani's grocery stores is expected to open in East Harlem, and many small bodega owners, small grocers, small businesses are already on record saying that they don't want this unfair government competition. They can't compete with taxpayer subsidized 30% discounts. Small businesses are already on razor thin margins, about 1 to 3%. So if you now have a government actor coming in promising 30% discounts, private businesses can't compete with that, and they will likely be driven out of the market as a result. And that just, once again, gives more ability to the government to open more and more of these government grocery stores.
Now, you talked earlier about some of the other states that have tried this, and also this happened during the Soviet Union. Grocery stores were operated by the state, prices were kept artificially low, and talk to us about what the outcome was of that.
That's a great point. Like I mentioned earlier, this has already been tried both domestically and globally. We've seen government grocery stores in Kansas, Chicago, Boston, now in New York City. But the biggest example is, of course, the Soviet Union, which sought to nationalize the food industry. And as a result, they had shortages. They had empty shelves, or maybe if there was food still on those shelves, it was rotting. But that ultimately resulted in the Soviet breadlines and mass starvation. So while that might not be the immediate case in New York City, that is certainly a long-term consequence if the mayor continues down this path and seeks to expand government control within the grocery business.
Communism. But we talk about government control. So do government-owned stores have the same incentive as privately owned stores to make as much profit as possible? Is that what their goal is?
That's a really good point that you bring up. And no, government-run grocery stores don't have the same incentives. And that is one big problem why these government stores can't solve grocery affordability. The answer lies in the productive private sector. Because if you're a small business owner, well, perhaps this is your livelihood. You rely on the profit from your stores to earn a living. So the incentives for government grocery stores are all wrong. They're not concerned about profit motives. They're not concerned about competition, whereas that is what drives the private sector. Conversely, these government stores are backed by taxpayer dollars, which is why they can just dump tens upon tens of millions of dollars into these failed socialist projects.
Now, you talk about being backed by taxpayer dollars. Instead of artificially lowering the prices on groceries, why not lower taxes? Is that an option?
Absolutely, it is. Lowering taxes for businesses, for individuals, reducing regulations and bureaucracy and red tape that are artificial barriers to entry for many small businesses.
Big taxes.
Reducing things like crime that disincentivize business activity and grocery stores from popping up in certain places. So certainly lowering taxes is one solution to making it more profitable for small grocers, and which will be passed along to consumers in the form of lower prices.
Well, we're gonna have to wait and see how this all plays out. The mayor's raising taxes for the wealthy. Thank you so much, Nicole Hoyer.
Thank you for having me.
We're very strong, very, very strong financially. They are, they have a weakening yen, and they wanted a little bit of help. And we're always there for Japan. Japan's been very good to us, with the exception, of course, of Pearl Harbor.
Mr.
They were not good.
What's the U.S. getting out of that arrangement?
Financial benefit. Financial benefit. It's also good for the world economy. But we make, like when we did with Argentina, I got criticized, we made $25 billion on that deal. On Venezuela, we make hundreds of billions of dollars. I make good deals. Intel, I made $75 billion for the country. I didn't make for me, I made for the country. Intel, I backed Intel. It's the hottest stock right now on the New York Stock, on the various stock exchanges. So we made about 75 to 80 billion dollars. And Japan wanted to. It was really more than anything else. It was a signal of friendship.
You said
Because the yen is weakening and the dollar is doing great.
You said
The fact is, our country is doing great. Everybody wants help from our country.
You said the
Were you with?
I'm with ABC. You said the
BBC?
ABC.
Oh, ABC, that's worse.
You said the
I like BBC better than ABC, actually. Go ahead.
The anti-weaponization fund is back on the table. What are your
Well,
plans?
if they don't improve, look, we have a man named Todd Blanche. He's outstanding in every way. Most of you know who he is. You're not going to find a better person. And everybody agreed. And it's because I backed one his opponent, and his opponent won in a landslide. That's the only reason it's happening. But I will say there are a lot of people that like. People were hurt so badly. 22 suicides, and they were destroyed. Their families were destroyed. There's never been an attack on any group of people in this country, in my opinion. Maybe one. There's one group that was attacked violently and viciously, like these people were attacked. And this would be a reimbursement for the pain that they suffer. A lot of people like it. If they don't approve Todd, I put it back on the table. A lot of people like it. A lot of big supporters of Trump like it.
Mr. President,
I just learned about it. Well, I'm going to look at it. I mean, so far it's accusations. I'll be looking at it. Yeah.
Sir, will the U.S. do anything?
Who?
Will the U.S. do anything to address OpenAI and Anthropic's models hacking others?
It could be. We're very much involved in that. We have a big stake in that. So does the world. So we're looking at it. I have, yeah. So you'll find out about it. I don't want to say that, Steve. I can't say that. But it was going to be a massive attack. It was going to be an attack that would have been by far the biggest attack since World War II. But they've asked us not to do it. They said, please don't do it. And their neighbors said that too. And so we're just going to see whether or not we can make a deal toward the denuclearization. Yeah, well, they start tomorrow. Just to do a great job. He's outstanding, as you know. He's an outstanding man. You look at his education. He was the head of, and he was immediately, very early at a young age, went to the head of Sullivan and Cromwell, one of the most prestigious, maybe the most prestigious law firm in the world. He headed up, well, let's see. I mean, look at the companies. Look at what he did. Oh, by the way, and he was a great, for 4 years, he was a great SEC chairman.
Do you want him to continue the initiatives that you had to do?
Well, I want him to do what he wants to do. He's an outstanding person. Everybody wanted him. And he really, I mean, he's truly outstanding.
When would you reconsider the
Yeah, terrible. Well, they are involved to an extent, but as you know, the local community really runs those things. And some people haven't liked the way the local communities run it. They haven't liked the way the sheriffs run it. But we would like to give them the benefit. But we're there anytime they need us. It's a terrible thing. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I was a survivor of familial child sex trafficking for 17 years, being family members as the predators. And that started as young as 6 months old, and it ended when I was 17 years old. But during that time, I struggled. I was screaming for people to help. I prayed that somebody would rescue me. I just hoped that somehow the nightmare would end, and it didn't. And my first attempt at suicide, I was 5 years old. I decided to go sit on the curb of my house and wait for a car to be coming by fast enough to jump in front of. I wanted to die instantly. I just wanted to be out of that life. I wanted to be dead. And in that moment, while I was waiting, I looked into this huge sky and I thought, I wonder how far it goes, how big it is. Did somebody make it? Is there somebody bigger than the people hurting me? And in that moment, I heard this voice within my heart that said, this is not the plan I have for you. Suicide is not the answer. And for a 5-year-old that had nothing to hope in, that gentle, resonant voice made me trust it. And in my life, that was God's voice. And so as I sat there, I answered back, if you keep me alive, I will do whatever you call me to do. Fast forward to 17 years old, that was the last time my birth mother tried to take my life. And I knew that I had to get out and I needed to find a way to help other kids and other people who suffered like I did. If I did anything that would help another human being not suffer, then my life would matter, and that pain that I went through would not be a loss. Here I am all these decades later doing what I was called to do at the age of 5 because somebody knew I was on that curb for a reason. 2008, I began a shelter system, which was very successful, and we saved over 300 plus at-risk homeless teens just in my area. And when COVID happened, they shut down our shelter system, our safe house system that had been so successful. And out of that came Voices Against Trafficking. It's 100% volunteer driven. There's no paid staff. All of us are giving time and efforts into this, creating greater public awareness. We use educational tools. We do everything we can to get the message out that human trafficking is not only wrong, it affects every neighborhood, every community. Case that I'm working with right now, where the officials, the agency leadership does not believe that a 6-year-old girl can report sexual abuse by the father. They feel that she's not old enough or that she had to be coached. And it's been happening since she was 3 years old. I remember 3 years old. I know exactly what happened and who did it to me. And so that is such a travesty and miscarriage of justice for that little girl's human rights, not let alone the mother, the 2-year-old sister that is still in the home, and the fact that they would discredit a child because they can describe their predator's anatomy and the actual acts committed against her at 6 years old. It hits home. It's very personal for me because I wasn't heard. I wasn't listened to. And I have suffered with the physical, emotional, mental, all those after effects. Even one sexual assault on a child can lead up to 73 different illnesses and cancers. Something as simple as putting helplines and hotlines in their phone right now today on voicesagainsttrafficking.com. They can go put them in their phone. If they're traveling or on vacation or they see something odd at school, they can call one of those numbers today. We had somebody call it from an airport not long ago who witnessed something that just didn't look right between a male in his 40s and a little toddler that he had with him. No diaper bag, no bottles, no toys, nothing that indicated he could be the father. And we were grateful that we could get to Homeland Security, get a case open, and they were on it within 4 hours. As a voice in your own neighborhood, in your own community, in your own village, you can be the beacon of hope for a child that I was.